Hello, beloved friends, and welcome back to another episode of this Dawn of the Golden Age vodcast. Today we have a really special guest, Pete Wilson, and he's going to be speaking about something that's really quite alive for him at this moment. But first, let me introduce him properly. And this is my own words. He is a poet. He speaks to men on every single level imaginable. He has one of those chameleon voices that can shape and craft itself to whoever is before him. He's very loyal, he's very dependable, and he makes a really good and solid friend because I hear what his friends say about him. He has a new website that's about to be launched, Men at Heart, I believe. He is also another master craftsman when it comes to the word, both written and spoken. Hi, Pete. Thank you for
Hello.
joining us on this.
Hello. Wow, you're shining as ever. Yeah.
So, Pete, I know that you've been listening to my previous episodes of these vodcasts, and I know you wanted to come forward with something really important on your heart in relation to men, the journey that they're on at the moment. So maybe you just open up.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, by the way. I kind of want to flag for, if I say the ordinary guy or the guy next door, it's not quite right as a term, but the guy I'm talking about is not the kind of guy that's already on some path or some spiritual path. And it's not the, excusing the phrase, the average pond life who doesn't think further than his 42-inch TV. I'm talking about a whole swathe of guys that are rising in numbers, and it's the kind of guy who's sort of sitting on the fence when it comes to the old phrases like the self-development or themselves finding some kind of meaningful pathway through life. This is a guy who's often has probably been through a number of long-term relationships which have failed, or even marriages which have ended in messy divorce. That kind of guy. He's been around the block a few times. He's nobody's fool. On the other hand, he's a kind of result of a kind of the patriarchal upbringing of not so much to ask too many questions, just do as you're told, and I'm from an old soldier stock, so I guess I'm very much from that background. These guys are often have either lost a previous partner or are together with a long-term partner who is on a path of her own. She's definitely researching into the feminine and waking her own self up in many ways. And this guy has been kind of looking side on, wondering what's happening with his partner. And now in later years, it's kind of the scenario where she's actually wanting more. She's saying she wants more than what they've been not rocking the boat over in their 10 or 20 years worth of a relationship. So, and he's kind of scratching his head, what the hell does that mean? So my flagging up is for guys exactly like that. We know that there is something amiss. There is something in us and something in the way we relate that is no longer good enough. The way that we are with our partners, the way that we are within our own lives, the way that we try to express ourselves sexually and get a quick hand jerk to go somewhere else kind of thing. There's a lot here. It's kind of like we know something is afoot. You're calling it, a golden age. there's some kind of visceral, perceivable change happening, and it feels like if we don't do something as ordinary guys, then we're going to get left behind. Our partners will leave us if we don't do something. And we're kind of, well, what is it we need to do? And it's kind of difficult to find. Firstly, there's so many self-help programs out there and so many books written on all kinds of well-meaning subjects, but it's like, where do you start? We're coming out of the era of our fathers, which was the good guy, you know, working one or more jobs, bringing the money home, being the good man and the good father kind of thing, where that was enough of what it meant to be a man. Now it's kind of like, well, that's just not enough. We have to be developing ourselves in some way.
I would like to ask you, Pete,
yeah.
what do you feel is standing in the way?
I think it's our own background. It's our own classic 2.5 kids, mother and father, long-term relationship background, be it in Britain or America. And it's we actually kind of swallowed all the political rhetoric of standing up for your king and country, or standing up for the flag and doing the right thing in terms of service or whatever. We actually believed, when politicians tell us something, we actually believed that they were telling us the truth. And we're kind of waking up now, having been around the block, like I said, for 30, 40, 50 years, to find out actually that all of our previous role models don't actually count for anything. You know, even as the church and Hollywooders are getting outed, royal families getting outed for their misconduct and misbehaviors, and quite rightly, Ricky Gervais ripping faces off and saying, well, who are you to tell us how to be? Look at what you're doing. We're actually being sort of forced to turn inwards for some kind of reference of how to be and who to be. So very interesting time, although extremely scary as well, Anaya.
Would you say it feels as if the world of men is falling? Now, I'm not saying ending or dying or being destroyed, but falling.
I would say it's the old patriarchal driven version of the world and how we're supposed to be that is a cracking, crumbling facade. And it's been that way noticeably for the last 10 years or so. The last couple of years, things seem to be growing apace. And it's clear to almost everybody that dares to half glance at the world, something must be done. We need to change something, or this is not sustainable. It's not that we have the answers to, well, what then? But at least, you know, more men are asking themselves and asking each other the right questions. So it's just a question of time. State is gone, church is gone. You know, the larger religions are also crumbling where people have a choice. People are hopefully more informed than ever before. Us guys have never had so much information at our fingertips.
How does it feel for a man to be in contact with something that is unknown, unmeasurable? So when I say something like, it sounds as if the men are being invited to take a leap of faith, to step into some unknown part of themselves in an unknown world. How does that make men feel?
Yeah, that's the absolutely scary bit. Us guys that have come up from the patriarchal world, our fathers were from that, absolutely. Where we've been told by king and country and church of what it means to be a man. And we've tried to be that, only to find out it isn't that. That is not enough in itself by far. And what we're actually being invited to do is to be in contact with our own feminine, our own internal feminine. But that's not something we've ever had any inkling of, never been told about, never had any support to investigate. And so it's a complete, strange universe. And it's like we've suddenly taken off a pair of glasses and see things in a complete, familiar things, but in a completely different light. And we don't have the maps to navigate in this country. We never have had. We've kind of done our own thing in our own way and controlled life and controlled women so that we don't get, in a panicky state of chaos. Maybe it's that thought of chaos that's the actual real threat, rather than the truth of something else needs to happen.
When you see woman rising in her authentic feminine, how do you really feel about that?
I think it's kind of like a mixed bag. It's kind of like hearing some great impassioned TED talk, or some Swedish teacher talking at the UN and sort of in tears, and the initial response is, wow, good for you, fucking right, somebody needed to say that. That's the kind of, wow, good for you. And then there's a kind of knee-jerk action to, holy shit, how do we deal with this? How do we orientate ourselves to that? And we don't have any tools in our box of tricks to kind of help us along the way. So it's, again, it's really threatening. And therefore there's the knee-jerk reaction of many men to things like the Me Too campaign of, well, what about me? I was also a subject of childhood abuse. Instead of actually embracing what's been said and how we can orientate to that, it's kind of straight back in a narcissistic way to, well, what about me? Poor me. And I recognize myself there. Perhaps most guys' number one fail-safe get out is the victim. Instead of actually going and looking at depth of what's being said, maybe even about us, just defending, as I have often done, instead of really getting at it, it's putting up sets of defenses and, negating or, giving back in a gaslighting kind of way. Dodgy stuff.
Would you say that men classify joy and playfulness as a high value in everyday life?
Oh, wow, everyday life. I think we mix up both terms and translate them into something else. Joy we translate into happiness. And that could be our favourite football team scoring a goal. It's not the same thing at all. As in joy, as in a state of being. Guys don't do the state of being thing so much. And I think it's fair to say guys are very much influenced by the environment around them. If it's the workplace, it's the workplace environment. If it's the home and family with children, that's another environment. Joy doesn't, it's kind of like one of those dictionary words. We know it exists, but when it comes to, do you feel joy? When do you feel joy? Where does it sit in your body? That's like a next. And what was the other word?
Whether it spontaneity and playfulness.
Spontaneity is dodgy because that's kind of like playfulness. Yeah, that's the kind of thing you do with the kids, playfulness, and dads overdo that with their kids. A bit of rough and tumble, that kind of playfulness doesn't really, as long as we can control it and keep it, that's why dads play football, because dads know about football. Dads are supposed to know about football. That's what playing means. But when it comes to any kind of internal component or content in the play, that's a bit shaky. When the kids want to do something like that, send them to the mum, because that's her department, which is sad because You know, it's not something we've been encouraged to develop, men. Or if we are, it's within certain confines, within certain situations where it's accepted, i.e. pub.
What would you say would be a really comfortable way in for a man to come into contact with his feminine, with the unknown, with the mystery?
I think, as with almost all things, the best way to encourage a man into anything is by personal examination, personal encouragement, especially on behalf of his partner. And a loving way of either showing or describing in the moment as it happens, so he can directly experience it, what it is she means. So, you know, if I have a problem with, you know, I do have a problem with reaching certain aspects of my feminine. For example, penetration, as in non-physical penetration. How do I penetrate my partner? I have real difficulties. Kind of, well, what does that mean? How do I do that? And I can talk about it, but when I actually do it, if you say, well, so when I'm actually doing it, that's what it looks like in the moment, and I can listen to that. Wow, that's what it feels like. I can then therefore recall that incident and compare some new incident with that. And, I can bring that to this situation. That makes her feel whatever it is, more loved or more honored as a woman. And that's what I want. So I can do that until, you know, almost like a fake it till you make it scenario. If I do that often enough, remind myself of how penetrative skills feel or sound or are written or are recorded, then I can repeat it. And eventually it'll become second nature. So summary is, I think it's a guy's partner who's the number one potential for him becoming more of himself and becoming a better partner, whatever better means.
List 3 no-nos. So 3 things that you know that men are absolutely turn off, switch off.
When it comes to encouraging him, don't sound like mother scolding with a pointing finger. So mothering will either get closure or aggression. Also, don't sound like a therapist, even though you know that this is therapist material. Find your own words that he can accept, and use those. Even if you're saying the same damn thing, just in a different word, it doesn't matter. You know, and this is really important too. It's only in long-term committed relationships you can do this, because you learn what the partner can and cannot, and how the partner can and cannot take things or do things. The third thing I would say is, it sounds a bit like control, a little bit like manipulation. But if you want him to do something, like if you know it would be wise for him to go on that weekend workshop, which is about healing the wound between him and his mother, if you know that's good for him, try and do it in such a way as though he thought of it himself first. It doesn't matter if it is manipulative, because the intention at the end of it is that you know he would be wise to do that. You know he would not go because you suggest it. But if you can bring it, the conversation or the situation round, so it's as though he thought of it. Like, for example, you've got a leaflet for that workshop, lay it on the kitchen table, or like beside the remote control or something like that, or put it in his reading book. And it kind of, if he's able to be joyful and playful, he'll understand, okay, she wants me to read this. That's a If he's not that kind of guy, it's trying to find ways of, you know, getting the same information across. Could you watch a YouTube video in bed at night, roughly about the same thing, to open the conversation? You know, how is it with you and your mum? When did you speak last? Or, you know, what's the big issues with her? How did you grow up? You know. So those are the three sort of or two no-nos and one do.
Okay. Finally.
Yeah.
How do men feel? Do you think men are noticing that sexuality and intimacy is changing? And if they're noticing, how do you think they feel about it?
I think it's the first thing we men have noticed, actually. Women are no longer lying back and thinking of England, just so he can empty his whatever issues he's got into her, which is, you know, making her a dustbin at best. And the ladies saying no when they mean no is the biggest gift to all of us, rather than saying yes when they mean no, for example. And, you know, it is difficult ground. It is a thorny subject, but I think in the end, getting to the place of the conversation between these two partners, even to the depth of, well, why do we actually make love in the first place? What is the reasons for it? And it's okay to say things like, well, because it's fun. Yeah, that's all right. That hopefully is true. But, you know, how many times does she just do it to keep him quiet, or to make sure he doesn't get angry, or because it's Thursday and that's when you've got a babysitter? You know, those old reasons are no longer valid for anyone, and they just keep us both locked in a frozen kind of, I don't know, as far away as you can get from each other without actually leaving the room, kind of thing. It's another area I think us guys talking to each other about this kind of subject is really vital, because I don't think we've got a clue really why we make love. It's just what's expected of us. You know, it's the number one priority, but no one's ever sort of got into the nuts and bolts of it in terms of how and where it comes from, what it's for, where it could lead or take us, you know. And those are discussions that are starting to happen, and it's noticeable that there are very many more men's groups or mixed groups where these kind of subjects are actually normal. So great stuff.
I know I said that was the last issue, but I have another one. Last one, definitely.
Yeah.
How do men feel with the rise of a feminine Godhead? So a feminine face is coming into view as, you know, Sacred Origins or Great Mother. How do you think men truly respond to that notion?
I think guys from my background, working class UK, sort of London, big city kind of, will go bollocks as an initial thing. And then there's the whole church thing and the whole male God imagery and everything that the Vatican or the Church of England or whatever else it is in America, it clearly doesn't work for us guys. It doesn't make any sense. It's been sold as it's a dodgy job. It's a Friday afternoon car construction. And it would be like, well, God's actually a woman. And it's like, okay, fine. As an initial set of responses. But then if said partner actually listed the characteristics of the feminine, not of woman, of the feminine, all the things that she is known as or known for, and then compare that to the idea of a loving goddess or God, and it's like, okay, yeah, it's kind of actually fits with the idea of a loving mother. So that's not a far stretch from mother to goddess, because the feeling of being held, perhaps, or held in the right way, or seen for who you really are, taken care of when you're in a place where you need it. That's mother, even if our actual mothers weren't like that. So I don't know. I don't know if guys necessarily think it's relevant what form higher intelligence takes. I think most guys would say that there must be, just logically, some higher intelligence in the universe, but whether it wears a white dress and a beard or a white dress and a coronet, I don't know if it really matters all that much.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it for now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pete.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing your voice.
Yeah, pleasure.
Yeah, cup of chai would be lovely.
Okay, on its way up.